Hello everyone, X-Walk Hill Bethelite here. And if Jehovah's Witnesses have the truth and they have Jehovah's backing, well, why is it that their headquarters, the organization, Bethel, from a business standpoint is run worse than pretty much any other business in America? Now, again, we're talking about God focusing all his attention, the creator of heaven and earth, the creator of the universe, right? This same God focusing all his attention on just one organization, if that is true. If the God that people think created humankind is the one that is running the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses, well, then why is that organization run worse than worldly companies, worldly churches? Well, you can say, well, the people in the Jehovah's Witness organization are imperfect. Okay, well, the people in all these worldly companies are imperfect, just like the people in Bethel are imperfect. But the people in these worldly companies run their companies better than Watchtower runs its organization. People in all these churches are imperfect. But a lot of these churches are run better than the Jehovah's Witness religion. A lot of these churches are so much larger because these families are intact, right? That's partially why these churches are so much larger than Jehovah's Witnesses, is because most of these Christian religions can keep their families somewhat together, right? So you have all these families going to these churches, and these churches expand and become large. They become really big churches. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses continue to have meetings, when they did have meetings prior to COVID, in these little shoebox kingdom halls, because they can't keep their families together. They don't know how to resolve issues. All they know how to do, for the most part, is shun. So their kingdom halls don't get much bigger. They bring people in, then they shun them. Then they bring people in, then they shun them. So let's talk about this. Let's break this down. So let's start with the organization. If Jehovah is focusing his energy, if God is focusing his energy, we're not going to get into that Jehovah is not the correct pronunciation. There was no J. We're not even going to get into that. We're not even going to get into that part. Let's just get into the organization, how it's run. So, worldly companies, for the most part, whether they be magazine companies or what have you, they pay their employees. Watchtower said, we're not going to take that route. You have to believe, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, that God thought it was a good idea not to take that route, not to pay workers a livable wage. Well, how does that plan out? Well, you have, let's say you've got thousands of people in the American Bethel, the farm, Patterson Bethel, Warwick Bethel, all of these facilities they call Bethel. They have them all around the world. None of these people are being paid. Okay, well, what's our business plan for when these people get old? What is the business plan? Okay, worldly companies, what's our business plan? Well, if one of our employees gets old, he would have had money set aside for him to live on from all the wages we paid him, plus retirement that he has available for him once he becomes much older. He or she becomes older, not able to do as much, and then they could relatively enjoy the rest of their lives in retirement. What life they have left, right? If they're in their 60s, 70s, if they got 10 years left, they can enjoy that time in retirement. This is the worldly company, right? This is the company that, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, do not have God's direction. All those Christians running it, they don't have God's direction. They don't have God's backing. Their business plan should be worse than Bethel's. Their business plan should fall flat on its face, right? Compared to Watchtower or Jehovah's Witnesses business plan. They're at the headquarters at Bethel. Well, Bethel's plan is not to pay people at all. They just give them a little bit of an allowance so that these people can go and get some deodorant and toothpaste. How does that work? How does that plan out? So when a Bethelite is 50, what do they have saved up in the bank? When a Bethelite is 60, what's the business plan there? Are they just supposed to just keep working? They don't have any money. They can't travel to that area that they always wanted to travel to and just retire and live out the remainder of their life in their little dream area. They can't do that. They're at Bethel broke at 60, 70 years old. What happens when they have health problems? Well, they don't really have a lot of money. So what is the plan, right? Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, the organization as they like to call it, has no plan. So according to them, God never even thought about it. It never crossed his mind. Oh, well, if a person literally their whole life has no money saved up, that might be a problem. They never thought about that. Now, if you have Bethels all around the world, and you got thousands of people at, let's say, the U.S. Bethel, well, you're going to need, since these people don't have money, once they get older, you're going to need facilities for thousands of elderly people. You're essentially going to need a nursing home of sorts, a old person's home, a retirement home, right? Because worldly companies have figured this out, quote unquote, Satan's system. Satan has figured out that some of our elders will probably like a place to live if they're not really capable of doing everything on their own anymore, if they're not really capable of being independent. Well, Satan has figured out, because keep in mind, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, everything else outside of them is run by Satan. So Satan has figured out that, well, let's create an assisted living place right? Some of these places are very nice. They look nice. So our elders or elderly people can have a place to live and be assisted. Well, you got thousands of Bethelites, and Watchtower, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, Jehovah hadn't even figured out that when all these thousands of Bethelites get old and can't afford these nice assisted living facilities, well, we'll just make our own, right? Because these people have spent their entire lives serving us. They have given years and years and years of service with no pay. So the least thing that we could do as an organization that supposedly represents God is create or build an assisted living facility for all those thousands of people that serve at Bethel. So that we're talking about a sizable assisted living space, a real nice one, right? Because Satan apparently appreciates older ones, because Satan's system has created some really nice retirement homes. Oh, wow. Beautiful retirement homes, right? Assisted living spaces with trained people that work there and help and assist them on a day-to-day basis. Well, if Satan has figured that out, why hadn't Jehovah figured it out, right? According to Jehovah's Witnesses, that's who's running them. So Jehovah ain't figured out that when people get older and they can't do things on their own, well, you got all these other people that got nice assisted living. Why don't Jehovah's Witnesses, why didn't Watchtower created a very large facility? It would have to be large for thousands of people working there once they get older, for assisted living, right? I was at Bethel. I know what they have. All they did was block off a hallway at Bethel and just squeeze all the older people in there, right? They just block off just a regular hallway at Bethel. These people, once they get older, they don't get nothing, right? They just live the same place that they've always lived at, Bethel, and they just got this little hallway blocked off where they have rooms in there, the same size rooms, same rooms everybody else got, and they sit in that room, and to a large degree, a lot of these people, they just get forgotten about, and they just sit in those rooms until they die. That's what Jehovah's organization has got figured out for seniors. Right? Jehovah hadn't figured out that since he's not going to bring the end of the world or Armageddon, since he's not going to bring Armageddon, right? It's 2022. Jehovah would have had to have known he ain't bringing Armageddon all the way into the year 2022. So all those people that's been working at Bethel for years and years and years and years and years, maybe we should build a retirement facility. Maybe we should build something a little bit more dignified than just a hallway where we're just going to stick all the old people there. The people that we don't just kick out. We're just going to stick them there. Right? So obviously, Jehovah's Witnesses are run worse. Not giving your workers a livable wage is not better than giving them a livable wage. Not having nice assisted living facilities for all the thousands of people that are working for you. And since the end of the world isn't coming anytime soon, apparently, they're all going to get old. Every last one of the thousands of people that are working there are going to get old, and they're not going to have money. So not having a plan for these people at all, or assisted living at all, is not a good idea. A hallway blocked off at Bethel is not a plan for thousands of people who are going to eventually become old. And Bethel's all around the world. All these people are going to eventually become old, and they're not getting paid a livable wage. And so they're not going to have no retirement. They're not going to have nothing. There's no plan at all for these people. None. Jehovah's Witnesses can't even lie and say, oh, we've thought that out. That organization is far worse. Let's talk about Satan's organization, quote unquote. When you have a kid, you got stuff called maternity leave, where a person is able to give birth to their child and then come back to work after. You've got sick pay, you've got vacation, all these things. Now, let's look at Jehovah's organization, quote unquote. If this is Jehovah's organization, then why is it that they've got no plan for people who have kids? They don't have maternity leave. They got permanent leave at Bethel. It's not maternity leave, it's permanent leave. In other words, if y'all got kids, we putting y'all out. We just gonna kick you out. We don't care how long you've been here. We don't care how much time you spent. We don't care that you ain't got no money saved up. If you do this horrible thing, have sex with your wife at Bethel, and she ends up getting pregnant, unless y'all at Bethel having abortions, the only leave you get is permanent leave. You get put out. Right? If they do come back, it's 30 years later after they done raised their kid. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even make sense that not only are these people not getting a livable wage at Jehovah's organization, at Bethel, at the organization, they like to give it these big titles when it's so much worse than any other organization, but they like to give them these titles. Everybody knows it's worse than any other American organization that I can think of. Even some of the worst jobs I've ever had, I got paid pretty well. I got compensated pretty well. Bethel, you don't even have a plan for your elders. You don't have a plan for your people who have been living and working there their whole life, and they have kids. And this loving organization was they put them out. Right? All Jehovah's Witnesses know this, but because these people are so unloving, they don't care. It doesn't really even occur to them that this is even a big deal, because they don't care what ultimately happens to people. That's the truth. That's the truth. It's not that no Jehovah's Witness knows that Bethelites get old like any other human being. They just don't care what happens to them when they get old. It's not that they don't know that Bethelites can have kids just like anybody else that has sexual intercourse with their wife. They just don't care what happens if after the fact. So they never thought of a plan. They never thought of nothing. They ain't got no nurseries but they ain't never thought of that. They don't care. The end of the world was supposed to have been 50 years ago. The end of the world was supposed to have been 70 years ago. So Watchtower supposedly is being run by Jehovah. They're being run by the person who knows when the end of the world is going to come. Yet they're set up in a way Well, they've got no clue when it is. They're set up in a way where the end of the world was supposed to have been here 70 years ago, and they ain't really got no plan outside of that. How could that be possible that Jehovah's running it if he knows full well the end of the world wasn't going to be here 70 years ago, 60 years ago? He knew full well there wasn't going to be no end of the world no time soon when Bethel was built. So why didn't they also build retirement homes? Why didn't they also build nurseries and facilities for people that end up having kids? They had no plan for that. That's the reason why. They thought the end of the world was around the corner all them years, 50, 70, 80 years ago. They thought the end of the world was around the corner. That's why they had no plan for anything. How could they be ran by God, God's spirit and all this, when God knows the end of the world wasn't going to be around the corner? Why have they been lying for so many years? It's because they're not run by God. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. It's like the most obvious thing you could imagine, right? It is the most obvious thing that is blatantly obvious. They're not run by God because they ain't have a plan for a single thing. Right? What about these single Bethelites that they want so bad? They want single people because they're cheaper. These single Bethelites, when they go to Bethel, they work there for years and years and years. Now, people in quote unquote Satan's system, what they do when they're single is a lot of times they try to get themselves a job that pays them so that they can take care of a family, take care of the various different emergencies that happen. If they want to have 4 or 5 kids, have a house, right? For 4 or 5 kids, the size of the house needs to be. So all those things need to be thought out. Now, they have to have some plan, right? For kids. And even if they don't have a plan for kids and they have kids irresponsible, quote unquote, according to Jehovah's Witness, Satan's system has thought up this whole support thing where the parents still have to support the kid to some extent. There's child support. There's different things that they have set up. CPS, child, protective service. They got stuff set up. This is Satan's system, right? Well, when you look at Jehovah's system, the concept for a Bethelite is you're not going to have much money. You're going to go to Bethel, and Bethelites do get married, and that means that they're getting married with hardly no money. So in the event your wife does get pregnant, in the event your wife does get pregnant, not only does Bethel not have a plan, the organization you working for, they got no idea. You ask them, my wife's pregnant, what do I do? We got nothing. We don't know. Not only does Bethel, this organization supposedly ran by God, had no idea somebody might get pregnant when they get married, but also that husband, that wife, right? Neither of them have money. How's this work? Because Bethel is about to kick you out. So what plan does quote unquote Jehovah's organization have? Well, Jehovah, let's sit down and think about this. I want you guys to sit down and think about this. This is Jehovah, right? So Jehovah's plan, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, is that, well, Satan has got this system set up. Satan has got this nice structure set up with government assistance and Man, Satan's system is so well put together and has so many different things to help people. Jehovah just said, well, we'll just use Satan's system. Sit down and really think about that. So when the Bethelite gets married, brings his Bethel bride, neither of them are getting a livable wage. So when life happens and they have kids, what did Jehovah say? What did Jehovah think of? What did Jehovah's plan? Just put them out. Satan has got this nice system. There's government assistance. Satan will take care of them. Right? So Jehovah's plan is, I don't have to have a plan because Satan is such a freaking genius and he's got so many plans. Let that sink in. Jehovah doesn't have a plan for if disasters happen and things like that. Why doesn't he have a plan? Because we just relying on Satan. So the Bethelites, the husband and wife who both went to Bethel and worked there for years and years and years. Let's say they get pregnant. Well, you gotta go. We know that much. And if you need help, you gotta just get it from somewhere else. Right? You got family, whether they're in their religion or not. Somebody's got to help you because Watchtower has no plan at all. They don't have a time period where they get you a little place to live and where you can raise your kid and get you a start. You know, they don't even have a start for people who work at Bethel and for whatever reason have to leave. They don't, by start, I mean, they don't even have like a plan to get you started with a place to stay. They don't even set you up in an apartment. Okay, well, we'll get you an apartment. We'll get you 3 months rent. And in that time, you got to figure it out. They don't even do that. They ain't giving you no rent for no apartment. When I was there, they didn't have that plan. When I was there, their plan was if something happens, like we end up having to sell a bunch of buildings in Brooklyn and we got to consolidate everybody, we're just going to start getting rid of folk. We literally are just going to tell you, we need you to go. And the only assistance we're going to give you is assistance in putting your stuff in your car and in putting your stuff in boxes and then putting it in your car. Right? And that assistance wasn't even good because they stacked stuff up so high, I couldn't see out my back window. They just didn't care. This is the overall theme of Jehovah's Witnesses. In the long term, they didn't think about it because they just didn't care. And they think Jehovah's running it, so they just figure magically stuff is just going to work. Right? So they thought magically when they stacked all my boxes and my belongings up in my car so high that you can't, it's to the ceiling, so you can't see out the back window. They figure, well, God's running it. He's going to magically make it so this dude can see through the back freaking window. He can see through the boxes. These people are blatantly, obviously not run by God. And that's why when people say the what if they're right concept, that is the most ridiculous concept. There are so many concepts that are in regards to Jehovah's Witnesses that are just the most ridiculous concept known to man. There is no what if they're right. They're blatantly not. Blatantly. All you gotta do is look at the structure of the organ of Jehovah's Witnesses, and they ain't even got plans for a future. They ain't planned for nothing. They just use people, they use Bethelites, and if anything does not go exactly as convenient for Watchtower, they just get rid of them. That's the plan. We use them, we just get rid of them. Whatever happens, there ain't no Jehovah's Witness that care, so whatever. It's the same in families, right? Remember what I said before about not only the organizational structure, but the religious structure. A lot of churches are built up of families. What did Jehovah's Witnesses Jehovah's Witness families do when there's issues in the family. For the most part, they shun. Right? If there's a disagreement in regards to anything that has to do with the organization, religion, oftentimes anything that's just inconvenient for that particular Jehovah's Witness, what do? They just shun. That's all. They just stop talking to the family member. Families break up. And somebody said that it was a Jehovah's Witness said that shunning was loving. Think about this. They have no idea when the end of the world is coming, which means shunning potentially lasts forever. So they shun people for 20, 30, 40. They shun people their whole lives. How's that loving? It's not like they shun for a year and then they stop and they say, okay, we got to get back together. It's not shunning for a period of time. That wouldn't be loving, but you could make that argument if it was shunning for a year and then we mend things. No, they shun forever. That's the solution for everything with regards to Jehovah's Witnesses. It's just don't talk to the person. So their religious structure, which the building block of most churches is families, is worse than any other there is, right? Because there's families that may possibly not get along, but that is typically because something major happened in that family. It's not because just any little thing inconvenient. I've got a lot of family that are Jehovah's Witnesses that don't talk to other, and it's not that because something major happened to them. It's just, this is inconvenient. We shun people every day. Let's just do the shunning thing and call it a day. That's how they deal with problems within Jehovah's Witnesses, is they just don't talk to people. And God hadn't thought, well, the end of the world is not coming for a long time, so maybe these people need to learn how to cope with problems and keep their families together. Maybe. No, God never thought of that. Jehovah never thought of that. That the solution is going to be shunning, and when you shun someone, you're just not going to talk to that relative for the rest of their lives, and this is supposed to be loving? If you shun a person for 10 years, 20 years, this relationship is destroyed. It's over. You have destroyed that relationship. So that's not loving. And it's because people thought the end of the world was coming 70, 80 years ago and they weren't going to have to worry about it. So now they done shunned somebody for 30 years and the relationship is destroyed. They've destroyed their family relationships because they've done something unloving. Right? This is worse than anything, any plan any other family and any other Christian religion has to fix problems. 937-789-4021.